Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Why do we just assume that all of this infrastructure and entertainment and open information that is beaming all over the place, all the time, into every single home on the planet is exactly what we're told it is? Maybe there are people out there who are more important than us, more powerful and wealthier than us, that are communicating things and seeing things in the world that are meant for only them and not for us. I think it's fucking ridiculous to assume that media has just one purpose.
When you're alone and life is making you lonely, you can always go downtown. When you've got worries, all the noise and the hurry seems to help, I know. Downtown, just listen to the music of the traffic in the city. Linger on the sidewalk where the neon signs are pretty. How can you lose? The lights are much brighter there. You can't forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. No finer place for sure. Downtown, everything's waiting for you. Downtown. Don't hang around and let your problems surround you. There are movie shows downtown. Maybe you know some little places to go to where they never close. Downtown, just listen to the rhythm of a gentle bossa nova. You'll be dancing with them too before the night is over. Happy again. The lights are much brighter there. You can forget all your troubles, forget all your cares. So go downtown, where all the lights are bright. Downtown, waiting for you tonight. Downtown, you're gonna be alright now. Downtown, someone who is just like you and needs a gentle hand to guide them along. So maybe I'll see you there. We can forget all our troubles, forget all our cares. So go downtown. Things will be great when you're downtown. Don't wait a minute more. Downtown, everything's waiting for you.
If you don't read the newspaper, you are uninformed. If you do read the newspaper, you are misinformed. Mark Twain. From one blockbuster movie to another, Hollywood constantly casts its spells, projecting its version of the future on a growingly desensitized and unquestioning audience. Not unlike the ancient druid magicians who used magic wands made of the wood from the holly tree, these spells from dark cabal occultist magicians nowadays come from Hollywood movie studios. The form of social manipulation known as predictive programming is a celebrated tradition in Hollywood with its technical wizardry and special effects that shape our perceptions of reality by creating the illusion of an infallibly accurate vision of how the world is going to look in the future. I believe it was Scottish researcher and author Alan Watt, who I followed for many years until he passed in 2021, that coined the term predictive programming. He defined it as: predictive programming is a subtle form of psychological conditioning provided by the media to acquaint the public with planned societal changes to be implemented by our leaders. If and when these changes are put through, the public will already be familiarized with them and will accept them as natural progressions, thus lessening possible public resistance and commotion.
People were addicted to television in a very short space of time. Most people still today think that all entertainment to do with movies, drama, is there for nothing more than their entertainment. It never ever was that case. The greatest social messages are promoted through movies and drama, high drama, through the fixation of emotive sequences, emotional sequences, not logical, factual sequences, but pushing points across in an emotional way which register and fix in the mind. So emotional content is very, very important, rather than going through an actual discussion or an argument using logic and facts. There's no debate. And when you're being downloaded through fiction, your guard is down, the censor part of your brain is not in action as you would in a debate or a lecture. You're actually in an alpha state, being completely downloaded with new ideas. Very similar to a computer. And so therefore, a culture industry, which is called by its own the culture industry. The Soviet Union had a department called the culture industry. Their actors and directors were called the cultural leaders. All you have to do is keep giving them new updates every so often, and you can change an entire country or a nation or a block of nations who are all getting the same upgrades at the same time along certain paths. Today we call it political correctness. Most people want to belong to their peer group. They want to be the same as everyone else when it comes to opinions. In fact, they judge their own personal sanity by bouncing ideas off their neighbours and friends who will answer back and agree on these same topics in kind. It doesn't matter if the topics or what you're given are facts or utter nonsense, as long as everyone agrees at the same time. You'll say, well, I'm sane. And your friends will all agree because they've had the same information given to them.
The mainstream media is the most powerful tool used by the deep state cabal to manipulate the masses. It shapes and molds the people's opinions and attitudes. The mainstream media defines what is normal and acceptable to believe. Mass media are media forms designed to reach the largest audience possible, including television, movies, radio, newspapers, magazines, books, video games, and even much of the internet. There have been many studies that have been conducted this past century to measure the effects of this mass media machine on the minds of the population in order to discover what are the best techniques to influence the people. From those studies emerged the new science of communications, where mass communication is a necessary tool to ensure the functionality of a large democracy and is used in marketing, public relations, and in politics. The merger of media companies in the last decades generated a small oligarchy of media conglomerates. The TV shows we follow, the music we listen to, the movies we watch, and the newspapers we read are all produced by 5 corporations. The owners of those corporations have close ties to the world's globalists. By owning all of the possible outlets having the potential to reach the masses, these corporations have the power to create in the minds of the people a single and cohesive worldview, engendering a standardization of human thought.
Our world is filled with codes, pacts, user agreements, subliminal messages. Here. Words and symbols hidden in print advertising, sexual innuendo connected with corporations. Ideologies you assume you adopted through free will but are actually a result of hidden messages.
Okay, so what if there are messages that aren't subliminal, but are meant only for certain people?
Of course. That's as common as tits and hamburgers.
Subliminal perception is a deliberate process created by communication technicians, whereby you receive and respond to information and instructions without being aware of it. Messages in the form of printed words, pictures or voices presented either very rapidly or very obscurely bypass your conscious awareness. Anything consciously perceived can be evaluated, criticized, discussed, argued, and possibly rejected. Anything programmed subliminally to your consciousness meets no resistance. The subliminal information is stored in your brain and capable of influencing your judgment, behavior, and attitudes. This subject is explored in more detail in Wilson Bryan Key's 1973 book Subliminal Seduction. Let's have a look at a quick example. Here we see a picture of some flowers. Yes? Okay. Well, I will give you, the viewer, 10 seconds to find a word hidden in the picture. Starting now. Time is up. Now you can see the word. If I show you the image again, you will now see the word every time. Your consciousness is now open to the fact that there is a word hidden in the picture. Let us now look at some examples of Disney's subliminal messages.
security and have these two...
Sir, it's... him. This always gives me the creeps, sir.
He's the president of Hollywood. He's supposed to give you the creeps. Greetings, your tinseliness, imperious leader of Hollywood.
In the 1958 preface to A Brave New World, Aldous Huxley paints a rather grim portrait of society. He believes it is controlled by an impersonal force, a ruling elite which manipulates the population using a variety of methods. He states, "Impersonal forces over which we have almost no control seem to be pushing us all in the direction of the Brave New Worldian nightmare. And this impersonal pushing is being consciously accelerated by representatives of commercial and political organizations who have developed a number of new techniques for manipulating in the interest of some minority the thoughts and feelings of the masses." Huxley's bleak outlook was not a simple hypothesis or a mere paranoid delusion.
But I do think, first of all, that there are a number of impersonal forces which are pushing in the direction of less and less freedom. And I also think that there are a number of technological devices which anybody who wishes to use can use to accelerate this process of going away from freedom, of imposing control.
Hi folks, this is Alan Watt. It is November the 23rd, 2006, and it's about the culture creation industry, how ideas are downloaded into people's minds via fiction primarily, using high drama with emotion plus crisis. A situation in a movie and drama is a tremendous method of getting points across. It's almost like coupling an idea with the drama, and it's downloaded like a virus into your subconscious, and you're being programmed, and it's called predictive programming. The technique is ancient, and it's an old science. Plato, in his Republic, talks about the culture industry of his own day, and how it was essential not only for maintaining control over the people by the elite, but that they had to control everything that was given to the public. In other words, anything the public saw in drama on stage was authorized. Not only was it authorized, in ancient Greece, traveling troops of players would come into the cities and do their rounds, and it was compulsory to attend. Everyone, even the slaves, had to attend at least one performance, because just like today, they had their agenda and their schedule and their upgrading of the system, and it was done primarily through fiction, because the old saying is monkey see, monkey do, and we emulate what we see, especially when it's done in a typical hero and heroine form. The male will project himself into the hero's part and identify with the hero character, and the female, at least in the old days before all the vast estrogen stuff in their food and so on, and inoculations, the females used to look towards the heroine. This is an ancient science. It's never ever given up, and actors are hereditary. The families in acting can go back probably hundreds, maybe some of them maybe thousands of years. Specialized sections of society, once more, and they marry each other and intermarry within even smaller ranks. What's more interesting is the producers, the magicians, you might say, who understand and have a full grasp of what is to be conveyed to the audience, what messages must be imprinted in them, in their minds, and he knows the techniques and how to do this perfectly. A perfect science. Now, what's interesting is that back in the 1960s, the Royal Institute of International Affairs and its American branch, Council on Foreign Relations, had one of their international meetings. They held it in England to decide which country, using its film industry, would create the international culture of the future. And this was in the newspapers back then. And it was, I think, 2 or 3 week long meeting. And it was ultimately agreed upon that Hollywood would be given the job to create the worldwide culture for the general public, for a global society. And it would also be coupled with the music industry, obviously, because they go hand in glove, as Plato said, plus the fashion industry. Plato mentioned that too, and he called it the fashion industry in ancient Greece. Nothing, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And if something works, you don't want to change it. Why change it? A formula of human behavior is just a science. Each part of the direction that you want it to go into is just the ability to understand the formulas involved and then what buttons to push and what sequence. And if it's done in the right way, the right presentation, with the right propaganda, the public will react and do exactly as they're being programmed to do. It's worked in the past, it will work in the future.
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl G. Jung. Carl Jung is the founder of analytical psychology, which emphasizes understanding the psyche by exploring dreams, art, mythology, religion, symbols, and philosophy. The Swiss therapist is at the origin of many psychological concepts used today, but one of his most important and misunderstood concepts was the collective unconscious. Carl Jung wrote in The Concept of the Collective Unconscious, "My thesis then is as follows. In addition to our immediate consciousness, which is of a thoroughly personal nature, and which we believe to be the only empirical psyche, there exists a second psychic system of a collective, universal, and impersonal nature, which is identical in all individuals. This collective unconscious does not develop individually, but is inherited. It consists of pre-existent forms, the archetypes, which can only become conscious secondarily and which give definite form to certain psychic contents. The collective unconscious transpires through the existence of similar symbols and mythological figures in different civilizations. Archetypal symbols seem to be embedded in our collective subconscious, and when exposed to them, we demonstrate natural attraction and fascination. Occult symbols can, therefore, exert a great impact on people, even if many individuals were never personally introduced to the symbol's esoteric meaning. Mass media thinkers such as Edward Bernays found in this concept a great way to manipulate the public's personal and collective unconscious. Edward Bernays is considered to be the father of public relations, and used concepts discovered by his uncle, Sigmund Freud, to manipulate the public using the subconscious. In his opinion, the masses need to be manipulated by an invisible government to ensure the survival of democracy.
Most people listening know who Sigmund Freud was, but for purposes of this discussion, who was he?
For this discussion, he was Eddie Bernays' uncle. He was the man who told him exactly how to understand human psychology and how to use it. And while Freud was using psychology to try to basically free people from their emotional bonds. His nephew took a different lesson from it. He used psychology and an understanding of why people behave the way they do to help tie them to his clients, be they companies or politicians. He was really a brilliant student of his uncle's, but did things with his uncle's psychology that might have made his uncle really turn over in his grave if he saw all these things. Sure, he basically didn't believe in God, but more importantly, as part of his whole worldview, he saw the world as something that he could mold. He was the PR man who could come in and tell us how to look at things, how to behave, how to believe. And the idea of religion and the idea that things were already set in some sort of divine order was something that was contrary to basically everything that he believed.
Edward Bernays wrote in his 1928 book Propaganda, "The conscious and intelligent manipulation of the organized habits and opinions of the masses is an important element in democratic society. Those who manipulate this unseen mechanism of society constitute an invisible government which is the true ruling power of our country. We are governed, our minds are molded, our tastes formed, our ideas suggested, largely by men we have never heard of. This is a logical result of the way in which our democratic society is organized. Vast numbers of human beings must cooperate in this manner if they are to live together as a smoothly functioning society." Bernays' trailblazing marketing campaigns profoundly changed the functioning of American society. He basically created consumerism by creating a culture wherein Americans bought for pleasure instead of buying for survival. For this reason, he was considered by Life magazine to be the top 100 most influential Americans of the 20th century.
The very history of how America was founded, and the founding fathers, so to speak, what vision they had when they were putting together the idea to found this country. What was their vision? What were they thinking, and what were they actually working toward? And now that gets into the subject of Freemasonry, to the secret sciences like alchemy and political. There's a lot of political stuff in there too. You have to be careful about secret societies, because these different societies become very powerful and very wealthy, but they have an agenda. They have a particular agenda that they're trying to create or to bring into being, and therefore they will build the whole world around you. And you accept what, when you're a child, a baby, you come into the world and you just accept everything. And if you don't grow up, you just, as a grown person, you just accept whatever there is because that's the way it is. But that's not the way it is. And you keep in mind that there were secret societies that were involved in founding this country. And who were they? And what were they trying to do? You have to know secret societies to understand why there are so many different symbols and emblems in Washington, D.C. and around the world. Because it's different groups, societies, that are working towards certain agenda, and they are putting symbols out that represent their agenda. We know that even in gangs, when you drive to neighborhoods like in Los Angeles, and there are scribblings on the walls of gangs, those symbols mean something. And if you're in a gang, you know what those symbols mean. They're telling you something. Whoever is controlling that area, that's their symbols. And that's a whole study that you need to get into, studying the occult symbols of power in this world. They're used as a means to communicate and to influence you, or to connect you with the spiritual world that they represent.
Symbols can be very powerful, especially as they can elicit an emotional response. Neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, consists of a combination of verbal and physical cues that cause you to react, think, and feel in a very specific way. NLP comes with a number of positive effects, but it also ranks among one of the most effective mind control tactics of the 20th century. When done correctly, NLP relies on confusing and vague language to disorient a target and convince them into doing something they might not otherwise consider. It's akin to hypnotism, but slightly more scientifically proven, and less overt, which makes it all the more dangerous. A good example would be an old song which makes you feel happy as it brings back good memories, or how we associate the colour green with go and red to stop. How a certain fragrance can take you back in time to a particular situation which may or may not have been pleasant. Neurolinguistic programming emerged as a light version of mind control techniques used by the CIA on MKUltra victims in the 1950s and 60s. While the CIA inundated those poor souls with extreme amounts of drugs and verbal cues, NLP users simply overwhelmed their victims with vague phrasing and physical cues. While it sounds like the stuff of sci-fi movies, this mind control stuff really does seem to work. Many of these symbols used by the Cabal speak to our subconscious mind and have their own energetic imprint. On another level, secret societies use symbolism as a wink and a nod to other members, and to show the world that they are the true influencers and controllers of society, and we, what they call the useless eaters, the profane, are too in a trance, too stupid to even realize what is happening. However, delving to the deepest levels of the occult, with an understanding of what they call natural law, the dark occultists use symbolism and predictive programming as a means to let the world know their agenda and hide the truth out in the open. Such a blatant and treacherous doctrine of suppression was opposed by no less a statesman than United States President John F. Kennedy in a speech before the American Newspaper Publishers Association, whose own slang was littered with intrigue and covered up at the highest levels of government.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy, our nation turned to Gerald Ford and a select handful of others to make sense of that madness. And the conspiracy theorists can say what they will, but the Warren Commission report will always have the final definitive say on this tragic matter. Why? Because Jerry Ford put his name on it, and Jerry Ford's word was always good.
After a deluded gunman assassinated President Kennedy.
Karma clearing is the process of divulging your intentions to the unaware in order to receive the blessings or energy from the dark entity you wish to please through way of lies, deception, and darkness. One of their favorite ways to do this is through television and movies, as it can always be passed off as fiction, you know. Oh, you're crazy, that was only a movie. What's important here is that in order for them to facilitate the demented plans they've been carrying out on society for eons, they need to tell us what they are going to do. They need to clear their karma, or energy, so that what they are doing is already known. Whether it be conscious or subconscious, it's irrelevant. All that matters is that in some form, they tell us what they are going to do. So, to avoid the consequences, karma, for their evil actions, they know we must consent to our freedom being impeded upon, kind of like a vampire needing to be invited into the victim's home. Through our inability to consciously decode their messages, we are unknowingly giving them consent to continue their plans. They believe it adds to the dark magic of their spell if they provide their agenda in plain sight for everyone to see. Since we have been told, in their eyes we have provided consent, and hence they believe they have not broken natural law. Try to understand that the Cabal view us as pests that need to be kept in line so that they can get to enjoy the earth's wonders whilst we continue to live as debt slaves. It is a dangerous influence and power these nefarious groups wield, through their esoteric secrecy in their covert attempts to undermine certain social and political orders, while furthering their own hidden Luciferian agenda.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Certainement dans les 10 années à venir. Et d'abord, on va les implanter dans nos vêtements, c'est-à-dire wearables, comme on le dit. Et après, on pourrait s'imaginer qu'on les implante dans nos cerveaux ou dans notre peau. Et à la fin, peut-être il y a une communication directe entre notre cerveau et le monde digital. Ce que nous voyons, c'est une sorte de fusion du monde physique, digital et biologique.
In 1928, Edward Bernays already saw the immense potential of motion pictures to standardize thought. He wrote in his book Propaganda, "The American motion picture is the greatest unconscious carrier of propaganda in the world today. It is a great distributor for ideas and opinions. The motion picture can standardize the ideas and habits of a nation. Because pictures are made to meet market demands, they reflect, emphasize, and even exaggerate broad popular tendencies, rather than stimulate new ideas and opinions. The motion picture avails itself only of ideas and facts which are in vogue. As the newspaper seeks to purvey news, it seeks to purvey entertainment. The notion of escapism is even more relevant today. The masses constantly seeking state-of-the-art entertainment with video games, Netflix, an abundance of sport and movies, will resort to high-level budget productions that can only be produced by the biggest media corporations in the world. The public has been trained to love its propaganda to the extent that it spends its hard-earned money to be exposed to it.
Typical sheeple.
Propaganda is no longer the coercive or authoritative communication form found in dictatorships. It has become the representation of entertainment and pleasure. A single piece of media often does not have a lasting effect on the human psyche. Mass media, however, by its omnipresent nature, creates a living environment we evolve in on a daily basis. It defines the norm and excludes the undesirable. One of the reasons mass media successfully influences society is due to the extensive amount of research on cognitive sciences and human nature that has been applied to it. The results of those studies are applied to advertisements, movies, music videos, and other media in order to make them as influential as possible. The art of marketing is highly calculated and scientific, because it must reach both the individual and the collective consciousness. In big-budget mainstream corporate-funded cultural products, a video is not always just a video. Images, symbols, and meanings are strategically placed in order to generate a desired effect. But what if the messages described were able to reach directly the viewer's subconscious mind without the viewers even realizing what is happening? That is the goal of subliminal perception. In the past, when changes were imposed on populations, they would take to the streets, protest, and even riot. The main reason for this clash was due to the fact that the change was clearly announced by the rulers and understood by the population. It was sudden, and its effects could clearly be analysed and evaluated. Nowadays, when the deep state cabal needs a part of its agenda to be accepted by the public, it is done through desensitization. The agenda, which might go against the public best interests, is slowly, gradually, and repetitively introduced to the world through movies, music, videos, or the news, who present it as a solution to the problem. After several years of exposing the masses to a particular agenda, the deep state cabal openly presents the concept to the world, and due to mental programming, it is greeted with general indifference and is passively accepted.